Business. Will you rise, please, and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
What agenda? Well, I think this one.
Begin. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Our next order of business is the election of our chair and vice chair for the Air Pollution Control District. Traditionally, over the years, we have moved the vice chair into the chair position, and that would be Vice Chair Supervisor Zaragoza assuming the role as chair. And we can go ahead and do that and let you conduct the...
Don't we need a vote on it? We have voters.
Oh, I guess we could do that. By acclamation? Nobody's come to lobby you yet. Okay, I can see. Okay, any opposition to the tradition of vice chair to chair? Great. Well, thank you. Obviously, a strong vote of support.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chair, I'll turn it over to you for the election of the vice chair.
Okay, so...
You want to open nominations?
Any nominations for vice chair?
Mr. Chair, if I could, I'd like to suggest the name of Mayor Miller from the East County, the city of East County.
Second. We got a second. All in favor?
What do you consider East County? Is that east of...
East of Oxnard. That's right. Okay.
So, Mayor Miller? Yeah. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So we have a new chair. We have item number 3, the minutes, and my understanding is that we need a motion to continue the...
So moved.
Second.
Okay, so we'll continue the minutes to our next meeting probably in March. And item number 4, we have board comments. Any board comments? Okay, seeing none. Then there's no closed session, there will be no closed session, that's on number 5. And then we have the first regular agenda item number 6, and that's the approval of the chair appointments for 2 board members to the Air Pollution Control Standing Committee, and 1 board member as a district representative on the South Central Coast Basin Air Pollution Control. What is the pleasure of the board? Item number 6, and I understand that the chair and the vice chair are the reps, and we need 2 others. Is that correct?
It is. Mr. Chair, as a city Ventura representative and being nearby and close, I'd be happy to serve on this standing committee. If there's anybody else that wants to be happy to step aside. It's just sometimes convenient that I'm in the area that makes it for me to be here also.
Okay.
I'd nominate Councilmember Brennan for one of the positions for the standing committee.
Okay.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any
Thank you.
opposed? So we need a county representative, and
Everybody speak up at once.
nominate.
There's good sandwiches at the standing committee, I'm telling you.
We have
Not just granola bars. You can.
Linda was part of.
Supervisor Parks, you were on it. Do you want to do it again?
That's okay.
Are you willing to do it again?
I'm most willing to share.
Okay. So we'll nominate Linda. Nominate Linda.
In a second.
Okay. All in favor?
Hi.
Any opposed? Okay. Thank you. And also we have one, we need a representative for the South Central Coast Basin.
Does anybody know if Councilmember Morgan is willing to do it again? He's been doing it, and
I believe he is. He wasn't able to be here today, but I believe he is.
He's been
So
there.
I'll nominate him to do that.
Second.
Mr.
Morgan. And Brian, what you...
I was just going to say, I didn't know if Mr. Morgan was interested, and I certainly, when I was the chair, had the opportunity to sit in that position and meet once quarterly meeting. It was great to be involved with the Tri-County Air Basin, and especially
do you
with
want to do it?
I was interested in doing it. I was hoping to meet Mr. Morgan here and just talk to him about it.
Morgan's been there for 3 years, right?
Well, I would.
He has.
I'd be supportive of
Okay.
Councilmember Brennan.
Is there a way we could maybe postpone this until I get a chance?
Michael, what is that? Can we, or is that... Or maybe our attorney can.
Well, the only thing I see right now is that we have a meeting coming up February 17th, and our next Air Pollution Control Board meeting is March 9th. The Basin Wide Control Council was going to meet February 17th.
I have a question, Mr. Chair.
Okay, Commissioner.
How long has Mr. Morgan served in this role?
I believe it's been 3 years.
Oh, I'll withdraw my motion.
Okay, well, I will put my...
Brenda was nominated, is that? All in favor?
Aye.
Mr. Brennan, you're it?
Thank you, and I'll call Mr. Morgan this afternoon.
Tell him it was a coup.
Anything else we can report to?
I just thought, thank you. It's just that the Tri-County Air Base is doing great work on the greenhouse gas and climate change work, and that's a lot of what this county's doing also, so I'd be happy to
Thank you
continue that.
for volunteering for that. Item number 7, public hearing regarding adoption of proposed amendment Rule 74.2. Michael.
Chair Zaragoza, members of the board, I'm Mike Villegas, Air Pollution Control Officer. The district is proposing to adopt amendments to our Rule 74.2 architectural coatings to implement the 2007 suggested control measure that was promulgated by the California Air Resources Board. Architectural coatings, which are paints used for residential, commercial, and industrial applications, represent one of the few remaining categories where the district can achieve significant reactive organic compound emission reductions. The proposed rule amendments will reduce approximately 180 tons per year of reactive organic compound emissions in the county at a cost effectiveness of $1.12 per pound of ROC reduced, which is well below your board's threshold of $9 per pound. These proposed amendments will implement Control Measure R329 from the 2007 District's Air Quality Management Plan. Today is a milestone. This is the last control measure in our 2007 Air Quality Management Plan. Both federal and state Clean Air Act laws require that we adopt reasonable and feasible control measures to reduce ozone precursors in our county until we achieve the ambient air quality standards. Both the paint industry and the California Air Resources Board support the approved adoption of these amendments. A letter of support from Dunn Edwards, the largest regional paint supplier in Southern California, is attached to the board packet. In addition, we were just handed out a letter from the California Air Resources Board also supporting this rule action. A workshop was conducted in June of 2009, and industry participation included Dunn Edwards, Sherwin-Williams, and the National Paint and Coatings Association. The district's advisory committee recommended adoption of this rule at their September meeting last year. This rule will touch a wide variety of paint categories and reduce the ROC content of those categories. I'd like to point out that low ROC coatings are available to meet the proposed limits. Regarding the California Environmental Quality Act, the final EIR showed that all potentially significant impacts were analyzed and found to be less than significant. Your board should certify the final EIR along with the required statutory findings as part of this rule action. That's all I have. I'd be happy to answer questions.
You know, this is a public hearing. Do we have any concerns from the board now before? Do we have any speakers in the public hearing? Okay, we'll open the public hearing, and nobody here to speak on that. We'll close the public hearing. What is the pleasure of the...
Not a question, but just a comment that this is an awful lot of paper to print for this, that in the future, if we have a policy at the board, like if it's 10 or 20 pages, that's fine, but when you have 100 pages, not to print it all into the packet.
Consolidated.
Sure.
Yes.
Yeah.
I guess the next time we'll put the final EIR on file with the clerk. And
Thank you. With that, I'd be happy to move approval.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? That passes. Thank you. Item number 8 is public hearing regarding adoption of proposed amendment Rule 2.
yes. We're proposing to adopt amendments to our Rule 2 definitions to add 4 new organic solvents to a list of exempt organic solvents, otherwise known as exempt reactive organic compounds. These new exempts include T-butyl acetate, dimethyl carbonate, propylene carbonate, and methyl formate. These compounds have been determined by EPA based on their relatively low reactivity, and what that means is they have a very low potential to form ambient ozone. So EPA has delisted them, the California Air Resources Board has delisted them in some of their regulations also. This proposal is a win-win situation for the district and industry. Bottom line is it's going to give industry more flexibility to meet regulations such as Rule 74-2 for architectural coatings, and they're going to be able to do so with lower cost exempt solvents. In addition, our analysis shows that we will achieve 12 tons per year emission reduction of ROCs by allowing these solvents to be used in the county. The cost savings to industry will result from, as I said, the use of these new solvents. Since the use of these organic compounds will increase in the county, staff worked with the California Air Resources Board and reviewed the relevant literature on the health hazards of each of these compounds. The bottom line is we found no significant toxic issues, and these were, one of them actually is used in cosmetics. On September of last year, the district's advisory committee recommended adoption of the proposed rule amendments, which is supported by industry representatives, including the National Paint and Coatings Association and Sherwin-Williams. That's all I have, and I'll be happy to answer questions.
Is there any questions? This is a public hearing, so I'll open the public hearing. Do we have any speakers on that? Is there any one in the audience that'd like to speak on this item? If not, then we'll close the public hearing. What is the pleasure of the...
Just a question, Mr. Chair. Michael, is this the compound used in, or pertain to the compound used in dry cleaning?
No, it does not.
That's something else? Is that
Perchloroethylene is a compound that's being phased out of dry cleaning.
What is the time frame on that?
I think some of the earliest is July of this year, and is it completed in 2020 or 20?
And is there a substitute compound?
Yeah, there are substitute compounds. They're expensive, and
So we're going to see
not so much the compounds are expensive. Switching out your equipment to new equipment that can use these new compounds is very significant cost.
And how long have these small businesses had to...
They've known this has been coming for years. So actually, I know the one I go to in Oxnard, and they said, yeah, we're kind of saving up. We're saving up already because we know we're making the change. And I forgot what year they had, but they're aware.
You said years like 2 or 5 or...
The range I think is at least, there's some are starting this year, and then I think the small ones, they have another 5 years, something in that time frame. I apologize, it's a state regulation, and I haven't looked at it in a few years.
The reason I asked, I'm sure these, not to belabor the point, but these small businesses are being forced to change over at a time when they're probably not getting any money to buy the expensive equipment, so I'm just curious to what they're doing. I mean,
there are some state grants available to help them.
There are?
Yes. But,
have we educated them on?
Oh, yes.
Okay, good.
That's a good point, yeah.
Yeah, actually, there were a couple that, when it first started, there were a couple of the dry cleaners in Ventura County that jumped on that state grant, and they switched over to some new solvents.
And we're going to share that information with the small businesses.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And the other thing, every time we do mail-outs to the dry cleaning, we provide them in multiple languages, including Korean. Yeah. We have the state assist us with that translation.
Mr. Brennan?
I just want to say there's a few dry cleaners that actually over the last couple of years have marketed themselves as green.
Exactly.
And have moved in that direction. They've really captured the market. In some ways, some of the local folks have lost out because they haven't been able to step up, but this gives them, I know the one that I was going to, I shared that information with them about a year ago, and they did get a loan and are changing out their equipment right now so they can get back into being somewhat green and kind of more on a level playing field. And it is interesting, both in the item prior and this one also, to receive the kind of letters we do from the folks that are actually in the business, that they appreciate the outreach. And so this one obviously came from New York on this item, but certainly Don Edwards on the prior item, just saying they appreciated the opportunity to comment and go forward with it and appreciate it. I know we just saw something, I believe, in the business section over the weekend about, I think, a lady up in Thousand Oaks, that was actually came up with green for paint, and is doing that and sending it out all over the country now, and it's just started as sort of a garage operation, and now it's taking hold. So I think some of this, while it seems onerous, is driving some innovation and moving things in a direction that we all hear about the green economy, and this is one step forward. So,
As a testimonial also to the dry cleaners that have gone environmental, I think Huell Hauser did one, and it encouraged me to try one, and your colors are cleaner, it doesn't smell, and it's actually a nicer product when it comes out, so, and it doesn't use, toxic chemicals to do it.
well, that kind of testimonial, I will move the item.
You move the, is there
I'll
a
move the
second?
item.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So that passes, thank you. We have item number 9 is public hearing regarding adoption of proposed amendment 74.11.
Yeah, this amended rule would be
Water
the first control measure we'll include in our next air quality management plan, and that's to reach the more stringent federal ozone standard, and we'll find out soon where that's going to be set. I'm sure you've seen some of the press releases. The United States Environmental Protection Agency under the new administration is revisiting the Bush administration's decision to set it at 75 parts per billion, and they set a range from somewhere between 60 to 70 parts per billion, and it's going to be extremely challenging. I'll let you know that all the air districts, we're going to put our heads together and take a good look at this, because one of the things that happens that I think your board needs to be aware of, when they set these new standards under federal law, they're not allowed to consider cost or technical feasibility. They look strictly at the medical studies. And when you think about that makes sense from a medical standpoint, but when you try to implement it, if you didn't do an analysis on the feasibility or the cost, things can get pretty dicey. So it will be quite challenging for California. This proposed amendment to Rule 7411, natural gas-fired water heaters, will align the rule with a corresponding South Coast Air Quality Management District rule. Staff proposes to limit nitrogen oxide emissions from new general-use natural gas-fired water heaters under 75,000 BTUs per hour. And this is, the home size, or you might see these, a few of them in a gymnasium or something like that, or maybe even a dry cleaner, to a level of 10 nanograms per joule. And that is a significant drop from the current level of 40 nanograms per joule. In addition, new mobile home water heaters, which are currently exempt, would now have a limit of 40 nanograms per joule for nitrogen oxides. The limits would go into effect July 1st of this year and would apply in both, like I said, both residential and commercial application. This is really a point of sale rule. For me, or anyone else replacing their water heater, if you went to Lowe's or Home Depot or you had your plumber do it, they're just going to buy, in essence, a Southern California ultra-low emission water heater. And that's all that's going to be able to be used in Ventura County, same as the South Coast District.
What does that water heater do different than the other one besides emissions? Does it heat less? Does it do something less?
No, it really doesn't. It has lower emissions. It's going to, if you buy a 50-gallon water heater, you're going to get 50 gallons of hot water. And it's just they redesigned the burners. And we also have a representative from the water heater industry here today if you need any technical.
Yeah, because I'm wondering if you're burning natural gas, right, to do
Exactly.
that. How are you going to get less? Is there a filter system or something?
No, it isn't. It's a redesign of the burner that emits.
Is that what it is? The redesign that did it?
It's your emission reduction.
Yeah, because I understand that's great. I just don't want people to say, well, now it takes 3 times as long to heat my water up than it did before. That's the key.
That's a good point.
Yeah. No?
He just signaled me that there wouldn't be any change in that time.
Okay.
It's just a more efficient burner.
Which is great. I mean, there's no question that's great.
And Michael, we're looking at about 18,000 or so that we exchange.
Yeah, we estimate there's about 180,000 water heaters in the county, and what we're phasing in when we look at the emission reductions, we figure, say they last up to 10 years. So about 10% will be replaced each year. So bottom line, 10 years from now, we will achieve a total of 93 tons per year of nitrogen oxide reduction, achieving an additional 9.3 every year until that point. And then everybody's got the ultra-low version of the water heater in the county, in essence.
Michael, there's no mention of it, maybe I missed it, how do the tank water heaters compare in emissions, even the ultra-low ones, to the new tankless water heaters that I'm using and very happy with?
Well, we have the expert coming.
Yeah, we'll come up.
Because it's only firing up when you need it. But
I'm Don
overall-
Price. I'm the development engineer for this rule. Tankless water heaters are generally bigger, and they're more BTUs, more than 75,000 BTUs per hour. And the
Tankless?
emissions
I'm sorry,
can't...
you said tankless?
Tankless are bigger, I'm sorry. And they are not necessarily cleaner as far as the burners go. Some of them are, some of them aren't. It depends on the design. And frankly, I didn't look into the design of those tankless water heaters because it wasn't part of this rule.
But it's interesting, it's not.
They're not necessarily
because
cleaner.
It may burn less clean when it burns, but it only burns when you're...
Right.
So as
Exactly.
a tank water heater, you're keeping that water hot 24 hours a day.
So I don't
On a
have at the
tankless,
top
when you're
of
not
my...
home for 12 hours, you're burning... So and it's interesting that we have not embraced this technology, and this is an example of it, because it doesn't even address the tankless water heaters. It only goes after tank heaters. So.
Only because their size generally exceeds 75,000 BTUs per hour. They're not included.
Interesting. Okay.
That's a good point. Yeah. Any other questions? Where are you on this?
I just want you to know that, as these new technologies come out, the districts are going to be analyzing them, and you'll probably see, as this becomes more prevalent, the tankless units, you'll see a regulation headed for them. So,
Mr. Bennett?
Yeah, Mike, I know that my staff talked with you about this also, but this rule is coming out 4 years after South Coast Air Quality, and normally we have about a 2-year delay between when they adopt and when we adopt. This time it was 4. Any particular reason why this one took longer, and is our policy going to be to try to adopt within 2 years?
generally we do. Recently we found, well, it's been about the past decade, we've noticed that South Coast adopts what they call technology forcing regulations, and sometimes they go about 2 years into it, and then they suddenly realize that people are having compliance issues, and they relax the rule. And if we go in before we believe it's actually proven and cost effective, we have to relax the rule. Then we have to go back to EPA and explain why we're doing it, and then make up for the emission reductions, which can be quite difficult. And we followed South Coast quickly on their marine, about 2 years after the marine vessel coating rule, and they found issues with the paints, on the anti-fouling paints. We had to relax our rule. It was extremely time-consuming to us.
So in the future, you think the policy will be to enact it later?
Depending on how we see compliance going, if everything's going smoothly in the South Coast, then I think we'll move sooner.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so this is a public hearing, and I'll open the public hearing. Is there any speakers for? None? Anybody like to speak on this item? We'll close the public hearing, and so what is the pleasure of the board?
I'll move the item.
Second.
First and second, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So that passes. Item number 10, this is authorize to increase funding for 2008 and 2011.
Chair Zaragoza, members of the board, I'm Stan Cowan, district engineer. This item is to request additional funding for our lower emission school bus grant program. This program is designed to replace old diesel school buses with lower emission buses. Their initial funding back in 2008 was about $5 million, and this request is a slight increase to $5,068,913. To date, we've replaced approximately 13 school buses at various districts, and we retrofitted 4 at a cost of about $1.5 million. So we're still in the middle of the program. We are required to follow state guidelines for eligibility, And basically what that means is that the older school buses are replaced first, and so it actually kind of rewards the older fleets. We've been one of the leaders in the state as far as school bus grant implementation. In fact, we had Santa Barbara County request our assistance in their program. One of the major changes to this grant is that it's being funded now with federal bond funds instead of state money. And what this means is that we're no longer able to accept admin funds for that, so that's kind of a significant change. We request that you authorize the APCO to enter into an amended grant agreement and to accept the additional funding. And also to give us another year to expend funds as part of this new grant. That's all I have.
Any questions?
Sure.
Tom?
It's interesting, the funding started out as a state 1B fund.
Right.
And then after the first installment was paid of $800,000, the rest got transferred to the Build American Act, which is federal funds?
That's correct.
So those funds that were earmarked for this program initially from the state, where did those go?
That's a good question.
Michael knows.
I think the actual issue is the state is not in a situation to sell the bonds right now. They've had difficulty in actually selling those 1B bonds due to the fiscal crisis. So basically, they're using federal funds to cover for right now. I don't know what the long-term outcome of that would be. If the voters authorize these amount of bonds and they haven't sold them yet, I don't know what will happen in the future.
So there hasn't been any indication that these bonds have been moved to other uses?
Not that we know of, no.
Any other questions? Foy? No. What's the pleasure of the board?
Second.
First and second, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, that passes. And we have item 11, that's a approval of a proposed funding for school bus grant projects involving the Pleasant Valley District and Ventura Unified District, and direct the Air Pollution Control Officer to prepare a grant agreement for the project. And I understand there's a revision in that?
Yeah, there's a revision. We had a last-minute addition. Moore Park Unified School District applied for 2 school buses, and they qualified, so we're including them as part of this.
As part of
this action here.
And the revision has been handed to the board. Okay.
Basically, these are part of the same lower mission school bus program. Involves 2 buses for Pleasant Valley School District in Camarillo, 2 for Moore Park Unified, and 8 additional buses for Ventura Unified. Based on the funding that we have available, we'll be able to replace all the older buses that are 1985 model years and older. The difference in the prices between the Pleasant Valley and Ventura Unified is based strictly on the vendor that was chosen by the school districts. And there was a board item that came last June that talked about the additional sales tax and the inflated for the new models, and that's what the board allowed at that time for to increase the bus price over the $140,000 cap, and that excess is paid by AB 923 funds. So far with this program, since 2001, we've replaced over 49 school buses and 25 so far in this recent version. The emissions that we're getting, about 75 tons of NOx, 5 tons of particulate matter, and 550 tons of CO2. And that's all I have. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions? Foy?
I'm glad to see, I know that Supervisor Parks and the mayor here, myself, represent the East. We don't really see many East County agencies asking for buses. How come as that is?
Well, we got a request from Simi Valley, but all their buses are newer. They do have some 86s, so they will get, and they also are going to be getting some retrofit money. They have a grant for, I believe it's 8 or 9 retrofits at $20,000 a piece.
So replacement.
So the program encompasses both replacement of older buses with new ones, and then retrofit with the particulate traps to reduce PM emissions.
So we should just tell the district, hang on to their buses longer, and they'll get the air district
Yeah,
help to pay for them.
exactly.
I just wanted to point out, right now we're talking about the Prop 1B version of the school bus program. Before that, it was funded through another mechanism, and there were, in that older program, there were 24 buses replaces, 88 retrofits. Simi Valley was extremely active in the first part of the program.
And is there also an issue because Conejo Valley School District doesn't have their own buses? They have, I guess, Laidlaw?
Yeah, they got a grant, their vendor, the transportation provider, Durham, received a grant for retrofits, which is what they're eligible for. They're not eligible for replacement, but
Any additional questions? What's the pleasure of the board? The first and second, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, that passes. Item number 12 is authorize and adoption of resolution for Ventura County Air Pollution Control, APCD, to participate in the 2010 California Lawn and Garden Equipment Replacement Project.
yeah, members of the board, I'm Stan Cowan again. This is a request to accept a state grant from the Air Resources Board for a $50,000 grant to match our existing lawnmower program, which your board last year had a Clean Air Fund grant of $50,000, and so there was a match requirement to qualify for this funding, and we were successful in getting that program. The lawnmower program basically is opportunity for residents of Ventura County to replace their gasoline mowers with electric cordless mowers. The emission reductions are about 11 tons per year, including both ROC and NOx. So we'll have about $100,000 for this year, and possibly we could continue it till next year for this program. In order to drum up excitement for the program, we are going to have 2 trade-in events. One is planned for the Simi Valley landfill in Simi Valley, the recycling center. They've agreed to hold an event there. And the second event will be in Ventura at Standard Industries. The ARB is allowing us to spend up to $5,000 for outreach and advertising. This new program, we're going to be required to follow ARB guidelines for the lawnmower program, and the biggest change there will be that we'll only be funding vouchers, the $200 vouchers, for the cordless mowers and not the plug-in mowers. So that's a significant change, but I think we can deal with that. We're going to work with our current vendors that we have now, the Country Home Products, which is a Newton vendor, and Lowe's as well, and they both carry cordless mowers.
Those are the only 2 vendors that, okay.
that we're working with.
Okay.
We request that your board approve this participation and accept this new grant award, and have the chair sign the attached resolution. And that's all I have.
Can I ask you a question?
Any questions? Floyd?
It sounds like you're going to spend about $100,000.
Right.
And you're going to get 11 tons of reduction. When you take a bus off the road, how much reduction do you get per bus? What I'm trying to ask you, if I spend $100,000 on this, I get 11 tons. If I spend $100,000 someplace else, do I get 25 tons? Something else? I mean, for the dollars?
For the bus, you're talking, diesel emissions. So that the concern for the school, you're talking about school buses or just in general?
Well, I'm just talking in general. I'm just saying, if I had the opportunity to spend $100,000, where do I get that? Because our whole goal is to reduce as much tonnage as possible, right?
Right.
Where do we get, even though it's lawnmowers and it sounds good, I'm just curious, we only have so much money, so you're trying to get the most reduction as possible.
Right.
Is this a very, I mean, are these so polluting that this is a great reduction for $100,000?
It's not, there is some emission benefit. There's obviously benefit for the homeowner who's using a mower that's much more convenient to use,
right,
and they're not getting personal exposure. So there's a personal benefit, and there's the total air quality benefit. But yeah, you're correct. Buses and larger trucks emit much more NOx emissions.
Well, that's what I look at it.
Yeah.
For $100,000 to replace a bus or something, one that's driving 5 days a week, back and forth, and you're probably getting a whole lot greater reduction. I just look at it as the opportunities. Money's going to be short. Mm-hmm. Let's be the most practical to manage the goal, not just say we have all these programs going on. So.
Right.
Is this used also to educate the public?
Oh, yeah, sure.
I wanted to point out, with the ARB funds, they came up the Assembly Bill 118, and some of those funds were specifically earmarked for the lawn and garden program. So when there's a program opportunity, we're going to take the chance to go out, and get the reduction. But you're right. Yeah, maybe they should have, put more into.
So I only got so much money, where do we
more
get the
into Carl
greatest
Moyer,
return
yeah.
for that money? That would be better, yeah. Okay.
I'd also like to point out, Elsie, it's been, it's almost, we almost feel pressured to keep the program going because the public's gotten used to this, and let me tell you, the demand is just. The
Well,
phone
I know, and that's,
ringing.
you get this pressure from all this, constituent groups that are all behind this stuff, but saying, we only got so much money, our whole goal, really, at the end of the day, is
Exactly.
cleaner air, right?
Exactly.
And what gives us the cleanest air for the dollar? I think that's where we should focus, but, okay.
Linda?
Since you're there, it's slightly related. The power blowers, they create a lot of emissions. We get a lot of complaints. I have all throughout my representation for my district, and as a city council member, that because of the noise, we've had discussions about how they blow into the storm drain, so it impacts the water. Is there any technology out there that can make them cleaner and maybe more quiet that you know of? I know we had a program at one point with ones that plugged in, but they were pretty unrealistic as far as the landscapers are concerned. Is there anything going towards that? It seems like a great field to get into.
I know there's been some, like you said, there were the electric ones. We did have a buyback program with some specific funds earmarked for that, and we replaced about 196.
But those were the plug-in, right?
No, these were cleaner gasoline commercial blowers, and it was only open to the landscapers, and they held multiple events throughout the county, and they did have like a video training there to show them how to use it with creating less dust, etc. But the problem you're pointing out is prevalent.
It's what?
It's prevalent.
Yes.
It's most people call about the noise and the fact that the neighbors' leaves are now on their lawn or
in the
their
middle of
cars
the
older.
street.
The car they just had washed is now covered with dust.
But between the gas fumes and the, there's certainly emissions in there and the noise. I think those are two big ones also. So do the electric ones, are the, I guess, clean gas, is that what it was?
Well, really, the ones we replaced were lower emission gasoline engines.
Mm-hmm.
And so that helped on the air quality side. Obviously, it didn't do a whole lot of noise and dust, and that's an issue. And I'll point out some jurisdictions have just gone with noise ordinances on them, just because they're...
Mayor?
I have both. The electric one that I have is as noisy as the gas blower is a four-stroke, which means you're not mixing the oil and the gas, so it's a lot cleaner than doing the two-stroke. So there are options out there.
Yes, there are. And that's exactly when our replacement for the landscape, the commercial gardeners, it brought them into low emission in the four-stroke engine.
Maybe we can get a report on that and see what the difference are for the future.
Okay.
Any additional questions for the, any additional questions? What is the pleasure of the board? Second, good, first and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Item 13 is approval of the 2010 rulemaking calendar. Jeez.
Health and Safety Code Section 4923A requires the district to publish a list of regulatory measures scheduled or tentatively scheduled for consideration by your board in each year, and the list must be published each January. Our proposed list has already been placed on our website for over a month. District staff has created this proposed calendar to comply with the requirement, and it includes rulemaking activities scheduled or tentatively scheduled for consideration by your board in 2010. It includes rule actions to implement all feasible measures requirements, improvements to existing rules, and we've tried to include every rule of revision we can see that would be required by a state or federal mandate, even though Health and Safety Code does not require that. We've tried to make the list as comprehensive as possible. I want to point out to your board, when you look at the rule list, you'll see Rule 42, our permit fee rule, in there. We've looked at our financial situation, which is quite good right now. We've looked at the CPI, which is quite small, and we've decided that this year would be a good year not to have a fee increase on renewal fees, just because of the fact that the recession is continuing to be ongoing, and some of the impacts, like I said, we're just in good financial shape. The other thing that really hit me is the next board meeting, there's going to be a labor issue for the management resolution. So we're going to be seeing cost savings coming in that we certainly didn't anticipate at the start of the fiscal year. So it just seems that we're going to be fine, and this is the 1 year not to increase fees. I think this would be the one to do it in. And you might ask, why is that rule still there? You'll notice also that our Regulation 2, our permitting regulation, is on the list, and that's because EPA has proposed that the districts start regulating greenhouse gases via our federal permit program known as Title V. And if we're going to take on additional sources and greatly expand their permits, we may actually have to modify that rule to deal with the increase in workload to pick up the revenue to take on that new program. And that could be a significant program for the district. And that's all I have. I'll be happy to take questions.
Any questions for Michael? First and second. All in favor? Opposed? None. 14 is receive and file the 2009 Public Information Division report.
Just real quick, I just want you to know that the movie was a great success. Been viewed throughout the county. And now that, everything has a shelf life, and we're still doing some showings, but we're moving back into more traditional outreach in the upcoming year. And I think Barbara Page has done a great job for the district again.
Okay.
Does Barbara represent the entire division?
That's it. Barbara is the division.
You see the division.
What's the pleasure of the...
It was an excellent movie. I hate to think that it has a shelf life.
Well, actually, with the new curriculum coming out,
Yeah, it will be.
redistributing the audience.
Yeah, just to give you a quick update there, it's already been field tested. It was at Ventura High School. I know it was tested in San Diego, up in the Bay Area, and then...
As far as the field testing, Camarillo High School, Ventura High, Oxnard High, and Holland.
Thank you. Okay, so what's the
Excellent work for us. Move to receive and file.
second? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Let me go back to item 4 real quick. I forgot to mention something here. At the VCTC meeting the other day, we were discussing probably inviting Michael to help us with the SB 375 implementation as a technical support. And I've asked, Michael if we would participate with Darren, and with the subcommittee, and he says he's available. Do we have to take council any action on this, or just a direction?
Simple direction will be sufficient. Simple direction is sufficient.
Okay, so he's going to help us with the subcommittee and 375.
And I would just ask, maybe at the next meeting, we can actually have a formal approval to be part of the task force of VCTC and VCOG, which is what we're asking for. I know you've had a representative coming to the compacts. It's been excellent, and definitely need
We'll
your
put that
input.
part of the agenda.
Sure.
To formalize it. Is it fine?
I just think, I was just hearing the other day, there's some stuff coming up. I said something to Supervisor Gosa, Mayor Holden, in regards to what they're looking at in their city in regards to the Del Norte recycle deal, which is really interesting, because I think that there's an opportunity for us first of all, in their situation, as they could expand and have more jobs going on in Oxnard and more revenue for Oxnard. But the big thing for us in East County, I don't know if you've heard about this, is if, depending on what selection they make, they get 7,500 truck trips off the road in East County. The opportunity to do that.
Then we can
yeah, which is great. We talk about air pollution. You take some of these big trash trucks, take 7,500 of those trips off the road. I don't know if you've heard about some of the stuff that's going on with that, but that's a big opportunity. They're going to be looking at this kind of thing here, I think, at the end of the week or next week or something.
Mr. Mayor, maybe we could get together,
Yeah.
Well, just a note on that. Since we spoke, I had some discussion with staff, and it appears that both applicants at this point have the ability to accomplish that.
Yeah, that's what I mean, but I'm just saying.
Yeah, what happened, I guess, is that the current operator actually was kind of the trigger that got all those trucks on the road to start with, because of, so...
Yeah, there was just one that you guys are taking like 2,500 tons, and you bring 75, because they're shipping it all the way into Burbank or someplace down where we could bring it here. First of all, give jobs to Oxnard at the same time, plus all those trucks who go from Del Norte over to the landfill come back empty. Now they would come back full,
Yeah.
and we get rid of all those. Anyway, so there's some real opportunities. I was just excited. We're talking about
Save some money.
7,500 truck trips is a big thing to get off the roads. That's great. Plus the safety issue on the roads
Exactly.
is good, yeah.
And just note on that, the exciting thing about redoing the contract is that these opportunities are presenting themselves.
We can look at that. Thank you for that information. Okay, item 15, approval to cancel the Feb. 9, 2010.
Second.
All in favor?
All right.
And item 16 is receive and file.
So I received second.
All in favor?
Accurate.
Okay, it's approved. We're adjourned.
Adjourned.
Thank you.
She'll get